Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fieldcraft Survival Channel on YouTube. If you're watching this, look, we try to educate you on the full spectrum of preparedness. It's pretty wide. Everything that we do, we want to educate you on the realistic approach and how you integrate survival and preparedness into your life. And that's why Amber's here. Amber is a family woman. She lives a lifestyle of preparedness in her own way. And some of the things that we want to talk about are how you could apply thinking about survival and thinking about preparedness in your everyday activities and your everyday life. So we planned an actual getaway with the fam in this scenario for having the ability to go out and camp on our rig, but also being prepared for the contingencies in that worst case. As a mom, what are some of the things that you think about if you're out camping and you have kids that a lot of people who have parents might not even consider in preparedness?
Well, rather than camping alone or camping just with another adult, adding children to the mix just increases the chances of vulnerability and things happening because there's so many more people and the likelihood of something going south is so much greater. So with kids, it's really important to have a type of communication for your kids and med.
So we talked about that a little bit. One of the considerations that you should always think about when displaced from your kids, even from a small proximity, is the ability to communicate to them at all times. So you actually integrate the walkie-talkie thing. We've Skyped before talking about content and stuff, and your kids were talking to you via handheld radios. Do you teach them a protocol for that, like a standard operating procedure for that? How does that work?
We just have certain code words that they can use if they need help or if they feel like they're in danger, which we had a scenario last week. They were playing outside, and my oldest brought all three inside really quickly, and she told me that somebody had pulled into the driveway, and it was a delivery guy. But she sensed that there was somebody there that was outside of the norm. She used the code word with the other kids, gave me the code word over the walkie-talkie, and then came in the house, and I met them at the door.
Stay alert, stay alive. What I noticed about that scenario is part of it was I heard the conversation on the radio when I was talking to you, and it didn't seem distressed. Like, a lot of people forget that in preparedness, when you're implementing a tactic, like something physically and literally you're doing, that suppresses the paranoia. It suppresses the anxiety that somebody would feel because you have a protocol. And I noticed that even under mild stress, which is this is taking place, your kids weren't freaking out. They were literally just communicating in plain English, as opposed to somebody who would maybe freak out because it's the first time they've dealt with that circumstance. Is that something that you train and condition into your kids?
Yeah, for sure. I want them to be empowered and encouraged and confident, and we do that through constant conversation and through constant experiences, drills, things like that. But with kids, especially if you introduce something that reduces their vulnerability, so with them, lack of contact with mom would be really scary for a child who didn't think that they could adequately protect themselves. Introducing something as simple as a walkie-talkie or a handheld radio totally removes that.
I like that. Let's cover the two things that you said would be a priority for you going outdoors and something like this with your family. What is the first thing you said? You said
Communication.
Communication. So I have two radios here. One of them, this is a Baofeng ham radio. Now, the benefit of ham radio outside of walkie-talkie is the ability for you to receive a lot of pertinent information during disaster, like FEMA.
Like repeated information.
Repeated information. You know, if you don't have your ham radio license, technically you're not allowed to transmit, but in an emergency you can. And you could actually receive good information that's being transponded all over these base relay stations that's going to allow you to tap in and scan to hear that emergency disaster preparedness type stuff. So that I always recommend this. Outside of that, we talked about walkie-talkies. You can get walkie-talkies that are good for line of sight, not the best for tying into terrain where you might lose that radio frequency. What I like about vehicles is you could extend your range. So you could actually have an antenna that's tied into your walkie-talkies to extend your range via the mobile site. So if we're calling this headquarters, then the kids could be over the hilltop, and then you potentially setting up your infrastructure could be able to relay versus just line of sight, and that's very limited. This is what I love about communications because it meets all parameters. This used to be an expensive piece of technology. Africa, the Middle East, all over the world, I've traveled with a sat phone. This one's Inmarsat, INMARSAT. So what I recommend is, Josh Noss, who's the expert at communications, said to get this sat phone because it has the best coverage in locations that I'm going to be. And this is text, this is mobile. There's a lot of technology that's tied to this that's going to facilitate me reaching places that I can't, especially when we're taking this rig off grid and getting away from people, which I think is the point.
And by sat phone, you meant satellite phone.
Yes,
for those who don't
yeah,
know.
satellite
So
phone.
with communications, there's the two variables that people need to remember. It's being able to communicate with one another if the kids were to venture away, and then being able to communicate with the outside world further away.
Yeah, I love that. That redundancy and taking care of internal comms and external comms is important. Communications is comms, because when you do that, you can build your redundancy PACE plan based on all those things. PACE is primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency, so I have fail-safe backups that are going to facilitate my survival. And communications, bar none, is one of the most important things that you could have, because if you lose it and you're in a disaster, man, things are going to get rough. So let's talk about med, because you mentioned med. What are some of the things that you think about in med that probably differ from some of the stuff that I think about in med?
So I think it's important to have a basic hemorrhage kit that is going to help you with quick clotting if you were to have an arterial bleed or a bleed that was pretty vast, just because you're not really going to be able to carry enough gauze, or you don't want to carry enough gauze, so that allows you to not have to use as much gauze. Clotting factors. You have that, right?
Yeah, and for you guys who don't know this, Amber is a nurse. She's an active nurse because she's taking care of the home, but educating her kids and doing everything she does, a lot of the perspective that she has is from nursing. Something that I thought you would appreciate for the kids is things like toilet paper. Things like, you don't want this. This is the one. UVA, I was thinking this is like tanning lotion.
Highly toxic sunscreen.
Highly toxic sunscreen. There's other ways.
Bug spray.
Even Febreze, you never know. But I like the idea of having hygiene items and kits because, like, if you go out camping,
Wet wipes.
yeah, if kids aren't cleaning their hands, cleaning their bodies, even adults, it starts to break down everything.
Right.
And hygiene is super important, right?
Yeah, the natural flora and bacteria and yeast that exists out in the open, when you're outdoors, getting dirty, getting sweaty, can just really break down their skin really quickly. Cellulitis, all of these things.
Yeah, I almost got cellulitis in Ranger School from taking knees on the ground to pull security behind trees. And that's just because we were dirty and grimy and we are just out in the environment. And that's like the fracturing of your skin. You get that, it turns into an infection, and then it affects the skin. It's a bacterial infection of the skin. I've actually had that in my face too. Gross. This is our North American Rescue Cat 7 tourniquet holder with a tourniquet. One thing I always recommend for you guys is, remember, when you have kids, you have to think about them as well. When you assume one person is going to be a casualty, you forget that a lot of times casualties are made together. Meaning if you're in a vehicle accident and you roll a vehicle, it's just not going to be one person that potentially might use this. Think about the extremities via everybody who's in there. So we have the vehicle trauma response kit. I recommend that for a family of two, a husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, but also have an enhanced care kit. Because enhanced is going to allow you to upgrade and facilitate everybody in your families. Basically a household or a car full of people. One item, I know you'll like this. A lot of people don't know what this is, but a SAM splint can be used for isolating and stabilizing or immobilizing a fracture, a wound, but also could be used for around the neck in an extremist circumstance. But I like the dual purpose use of these, and they're cheap and expensive, and you can throw them in the back of this, goose gear system. Band-Aids, antiseptic wipes, gloves in this particular kit, and I actually have burn bandages. If you're around vehicles, if you're outdoors, if you're working with fire, campfires, have burn protectant. A lot of people don't understand how burns work. If you have a burn, putting dry gauze on it is probably like the worst thing you could do, right? What do you recommend for like a car kit? I put it in your pocket, the KY. That was to demonstrate what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so you have to put something liquid on top of it, or a cream or something like that.
Not like Kool-Aid.
Not like Kool-Aid, no.
A petroleum-based.
And in really dire situations, Doc has even suggested using things like shaving cream. You're putting that barrier.
That would hurt. Hey, whatever you have. Because the alternative is you put it on, that raw material onto a wound, like a burn, and then you cause more infection, more issues down the road, especially when you have to get to a higher level of care.
Most basic first aid kits have a burn cream included in it.
I never thought about that. Is burn cream like antiseptic, petroleum-based?
It has antiseptic properties, yeah.
Like that. Look, in family preparedness, what do I think about? Yeah, I think about security. This is a truck gun. This is made by Bravo Company Manufacturing. It has a Law Tactical folder that collapses and folds and gives you a small form factor for security. Now, if you have kids, Amber is an advocate of being proactive in education, but let them know how dangerous this can be and show them the right way to handle them, how to safely clear them, and the rules of firearm safety. That's super important. But I always, no matter where I go, especially out in remote places, have access to a long rifle that's going to extend my range. This particular one is a 300 Blackout. I'll have a pistol as well. Everybody in my family will have a pistol. I mean, old Amber here has a pistol, appendix carry in her waistband. That's important, but also educating the kids, super important, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you do for educating kids, especially when it comes to having multiple types of firearms all over the house in your vehicle potentially?
Yeah, I think it's really important to show them the variety of guns that they may encounter, even if it's not a gun that you have in your home. Finding somebody that has guns like that, or searching for pictures of these guns and showing them to the children, just because it's such a wide variety, and you don't want them to get confused thinking that this may be a toy or a tool.
Yeah.
Something that's not harmful.
A lot of these guns have different cycles of operation and different ways to manipulate safeties and triggers. Just do your due diligence.
And just teach them not to touch.
Yes, that's important.
That's the NRA's song.
Is it?
Stop, don't touch, run away, tell a grown-up. Such a good song.
One of the reasons why I wanted to do this is because I want to show you kind of how this loadout is developing. Big shout out to Goose Gear. This is a Goose Gear system. I like the fact that I could roll all this out and have room for carbines, for survival, for med. And I left that real estate open on top because I like to do, loading out depending on what I'm doing. We have an 8-liter loadout, and you'll stuff it with everything, and you can put it on top of that. If you're a family, you can put kids stuff, whatever it is that you need. It has a cooking system here where I could roll this out, conveniently stowed. And I've opted, because I don't need the fridge, it's the middle of winter, I opted to keep this empty so I could stuff more bags in this for the loadout. But lightweight, super durable. If you guys are interested in that, see the notes below. This Land Cruiser is developing. Me and Amber are going to go out and shoot some stills and shoot some stuff in the backcountry, because I want to show you guys how we interact with this type of overlanding equipment. Amber, what is you have a blog, right?
Yes. Well, I haven't officially launched it yet.
Well, tell me about the blog. Maybe before we drop this, it'll be launched.
So it's amberl.com, amber-l.com, and I do just holistic education, homesteading type things, homeschool, and I have a whole section for fieldcraft stuff on there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you. Cool. Thanks, guys. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. If you like what you see, fieldcraftsurvival.com, fieldcraftsurvival.locals.com, all available in the notes below. Until next time. Thanks, guys.